I think I can honestly say that this leak from 6 months ago has been the leak that I have been most excited to cover for all of this year so far. And the reasons are simple. You see, when I saw this information, I said, finally. Finally, it seems like AMD is going for releasing a mega APU that will at least offer mid range or even arguably high end enthusiast laptop performance without requiring a dedicated graphics card. And that also, finally, AMD was going beyond 8 cores in their monolithic APUs, namely to 12 cores, and that those 12 cores fit in a 35-watt form factor. And yeah, it wasn't as strong as an enthusiast graphics card, but it still wasn't a slouch in graphics. It had 3050 performance, and that's more than enough for 1080p. And importantly, because it doesn't have just 4 or 6 gigabytes of VRAM, you could have 32, 64 gigabytes. This thing would never run out of VRAM and be able to run 1440p in many newer games and certainly many of the older ones. But even back then, it wasn't all good news. It did seem like the release dates for these products were a little fishy and a little flaky. Although I had slides that indicated Strix and Strix Halo were aiming for early 2024 for release, multiple sources of mine, including the ones that provided these slides, told me that they were likely to slip at least a quarter. And that wasn't the only thing that they warned me. I was told that this thing called Phoenix Plus was getting nerfed into something called Hawk Point. And while that sounded like a non-negligible evolution and upgrade of Phoenix, it didn't sound like it was going to be a full plus situation. Like it wouldn't be as much of an uplift as Cezanne to Rembrandt. And so yeah, I never thought it would be a huge surprise if more delays happen with these products because they always seemed a bit flaky to me. And today, I unfortunately do have to communicate some delays from Team Red on their upcoming APUs, but also note that I have some encouraging upgrades and new details on some of these products as well that makes me think that AMD isn't totally screwed here. Although I must admit that I do think that Intel has been given a lot of breathing room for early next year, and I want to talk about it, but first an ad from a sponsor. My girlfriend likes dressing up our pets, and heck, I do too sometimes. Probably a lot more than they like it themselves. But you know what's scarier than being dressed up by a giant human like a strawberry or a tomato? Well, that's overpaying for Microsoft software, and that is why you should go to cdkeyoffer.com during their Halloween sales event. Whether it's Microsoft operating systems, Office products, or many of the latest games, cdkeyoffer.com provides PC gamers with a product that I honestly think this community needs, and that's just avoiding monopolistic prices on software, especially Windows and Office products. And the Moore's Law is Dead team has been working with this company for a very long time and still does for a reason. They've been good to us, they've been good to the community. Heck, recently I got my girlfriend a new compact gaming PC as an early Christmas present, and when it came time to set up the Office software, I realized she was paying a lot of money per year for Microsoft 365, and she was blown away to realize that that was a predatory service, and you can get Microsoft Professional 2021 Office for like $50 and then you're done. And you know what? You can get that around $50 cost if you just use the offer code Broken Silicon for 25% off, and you can use the code DieShrink as well to get 3% off every other piece of software on the website, whether it's Steam, EA, or Ubisoft keys. Using either of these codes, Broken Silicon or DieShrink, helps support Moore's Law is Dead a ton, and it saves you money. So support this channel by supporting cdkeyoffer.com during their Halloween sales event today. All right, now before I get to the spooky news, let me remind you all that I consider it incredibly dangerous to leak full slides from my sources within AMD, Intel, or really any company for that matter, and that I usually require that multiple sources send me the same slide so that I know it can't be triangulated to one location, or that I am allowed to wait long enough where it's highly unlikely thousands of people haven't seen it behind the scenes by now. And so, yeah, this is one of those times where I've had to heavily manipulate the slide, but it does come from a slide from within AMD about upcoming AMD APUs. It's a roadmap, but yeah, you'll see some things blacked out that I didn't feel really needed to be showed at all. And you'll also see some waviness and some color stuff, but this comes from a slide from within AMD. But I feel frankly, after the past few years of seeing people come up with complete BS like Zen 3 Plus on desktop and 1000 watt graphics cards, that if I can steer people in the right direction so they don't get their hopes up about the wrong things and they can look at this and go, okay, that clearly comes from something legit, then I should do so. And so, yeah, note that this has been heavily manipulated, but if I put this on screen, what you need to know is there. Now, the first thing that I want to note is that most of the architectures on this roadmap don't mention compute unit counts, and I actually considered adding it myself, but then I figured that's not necessary. I've already speculated or even shown slides proving the compute unit counts on many of these architectures in the past, like in this video here, so just go watch that video. I don't want to put anything on this slide that wasn't originally there. I feel like it would be a bit dishonest and unnecessary. You can just watch my other videos if you want to know more information about these products. And to be honest, I kind of suspect that AMD is starting to put less compute unit information on a lot of the stuff they're sharing with partners because, well, they just don't feel the need to give it away. Although, if we're being honest, it's a little too late for that on some of these. But anyways, yeah. After that, we do also have to note that several products here, which is what I said in the title of this video, are clearly being delayed, unfortunately, namely Strix Point and Strix Halo. Although it must be highlighted that Strix Point isn't getting that much of a delay. I leaked that it was coming out in Q2 to Q3. Most people I talk to say it's coming out around the middle of the year still. So I would just say it's likely to come out in late summer now instead of early summer. And that's not a big change, although it does put to rest the hopes that they would accelerate its release to Q1 or something. So I guess that's not happening as far as I can tell. And it's really Strix Halo that is seemingly getting delayed the most, going from the second half of next year to likely Q4 to, as far as I can see here, clearly 2025. That one there, that's a real delay. Whereas Hawkpoint unsurprisingly remains entirely on track. I mean, again, this is not a full Phoenix Plus now, it's just a Phoenix with some tweaks. But it definitely did get some tweaks, because notice here, it is now listed as getting a 60% boost in AI performance over Phoenix, namely 16 tops instead of 10 tops. That's pretty huge. Now, what would I say that means? Well, first of all, I would say that again, I don't think the uplift here is even going to be as big as like Renoir to Cezanne overall. But if I had to guess, this could be a similar uplift, or maybe even slightly better than what we saw from Raven Ridge to Picasso. It's still just 4nm to 4nm here, but that kind of tops increase, well, that tells me that they are getting some tweaks under the hood that allow for at least higher clock speeds, tremendously higher potentially on the AI engine, and I would then assume they got some decently higher clocks on the graphics and the CPU as well, but technically all I can confirm is a massive uplift over older leaks in AI performance, and that unfortunately it will not be getting, as far as I'm seeing here, RDNA 3.5 architecture for the graphics card, which, you know, again, it originally was supposed to when it was called Phoenix Plus, and then I was told that's not going to happen by most people, but a couple people were holding out hope it might still happen. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's happening. Oh, and speaking of tops, though, also notice the large increase for everything coming after Hawkpoint. I mean, now we see Strix Point go from 20 tops to 45 to 50, and the same for Halo, and even Kraken, and, well, according to what I am told, that is not a coincidence. You see, I am told that Microsoft is putting out a requirement for smooth AI, is how some people described it, for around 45 to 50 tops. And interestingly, I've also heard that this can include combining the AI engine with the graphics card performance, and it was suggested to me that maybe that's why Hawkpoint is having its AI engine's clocks presumably pushed so hard, because if you were to combine its integrated graphics with its 16 top AI engine, it might just be able to technically hit the threshold that Microsoft wants for AI performance. And I can't help but think that a lot of this has to do with the Copilot launch that's about to happen. And if you look at, well, look at this, Qualcomm has coincidentally just announced they're going to hit 45 tops with their AI engine as well. And so, yeah, I don't think this is a coincidence. I think all of these companies are now working towards meeting this Windows 11 AI requirement, and apparently that's going to include some massive uplifts in projected AI performance for the Zen 5 APUs coming out late next year and through 2025. But anyways, besides that, what else is there to say with this slide? Well, I guess the remaining things that stand out to me are, first of all, that it seems like Kraken point, which, yeah, I've seen this spelled a dozen different ways from multiple sources of mine, and I assume that's to catch leakers, by the way, so I just decided to spell it the correct way, is seemingly the product I've heard reference to as Little Strix when I look at the specs here. And it kind of also seems that is going to replace the idea of Little Phoenix, which is already out there right now, to little fanfare, though. And then it seems like Hawkpoint and then Escher are going to take the role of what Little Phoenix are now. And here's what I think's going on. I can't say that I have evidence of this, but I would speculate that AMD might min-max some aspects of Hawkpoint and then Escher to reduce die size a little bit year over year. Maybe not, I haven't seen proof of this, but that would make sense to me if you had Strix Point with 12 cores. But remember, as I've already leaked, Zen 5 cores are quite a bit bigger than Zen 4 cores. Maybe then they just make a Hawk Point thing and they go for density with some of the cores, then the same with Kraken Point with a denser Zen 5 for some of them, and for more of them I should say, and then the same with Escher. That's what I would be doing if I was AMD, and in fact this is informed by some whispers I've heard that Rembrandt refresh, that is like the 7735HS, that Rembrandt refresh is actually selling better to OEMs than AMD expected. And if that's the case, they're realizing, yeah, maybe there's not a point in making 5 different versions of every next-gen APU. Maybe it would be a lot cheaper to just use multiple nodes, maybe have a few versions of the next-gen APU, but then min-max density and power for lower segments with, at first, Phoenix, and then Strix into Kraken, and so on and so forth. But all right, I suppose the final thing here to talk about when we look at this slide is, well, does this still seem competitive with Intel with these delays? And my answer is, yeah, I think it does. You see, what I am hearing right now about Meteor Lake is that it's maybe 10 to 25% better than Phoenix, depending on the benchmark, and that it's launching so late, in the middle of December. So for being honest, availability is going to be there in Q1 of 2024. It's coming out so late, it's missed back to school, that OEMs are royally pissed that they do not have these laptops ready for the holiday season with Meteor Lake, and I've actually heard that they've been rushing to buy up as much Phoenix and Rembrandt R as they can right now for some of their Halo products that they weren't going to do if Phoenix was ready. And this is actually backed up by Wendell, who was recently on Broken Silicon, who has heard similar things. And so I think Meteor Lake still left AMD a bit of an opening this holiday season. And, well, I've already leaked benchmarks of Meteor Lake that suggest it's probably going to be, at best, a little better than Raptor Lake Refresh, just using less energy. And, well, that doesn't really make it beat Phoenix by all that much. And that means that if Hawkpoint is at least a little stronger than Phoenix, well, I don't really think that Meteor Lake's going to have a commanding performance lead in anything but maybe efficiency. And even then, I don't think you're going to get like double the battery life with Meteor Lake in a lot of situations. I think it's going to be very user workload dependent in what situations Meteor Lake wins. And so, yeah, I think that Hawkpoint is still going to be at least around the performance of Meteor Lake, if not trading blows with it. And therefore, well, I still think that's probably going to be enough to keep up until they launch Strix. And you have to remember that Strix is still poised to launch well before back to school and perfectly take that market before Intel has Arrow Lake ready. Remember that I've already leaked that Arrow Lake is coming out late. Even the desktop version may not launch until late Q4 next year, and then the laptop availability is not expected until 2025. And so, yeah, AMD still is going to have seemingly a 6-month field day with a product that, unlike Meteor Lake, has 24 threads that all go through full real cores, no E-cores required, and graphics performance that should at least be close to Arrow Lake's graphics performance that's coming out at least half a year later. And that's before we even talk about the fact that, yes, Meteor Lake will have some time on the market, but after Strix is some time on the market, they're still going to have things like Kraken, Escher, and Strix Halo to launch right next to Arrow Lake. And, well, then if you consider that some of those are cost optimized and should be far cheaper than Arrow Lake, I still think AMD is going to have a killer lineup that's going to be hard for Intel to compete with in 2025. And, if we really think about it, looking at this roadmap here, well, it's obvious that we had Phoenix come out in 2023, and based on recent leaks of mine, any Zen 6 APU wouldn't be ready until 2026 at the earliest. So if we have Phoenix in 2023 and Zen 6 in 2026, I don't think it's insane to think that Hawkpoint and Strix Point is 2024, and then Strix, Halo, Kraken, and Escher are 2025. That's still not a lazy APU cadence, and it's still fairly aggressive. And maybe it was just AMD being optimistic, thinking that they could have all of those launches in a single year. But optimistic or not, I do have to admit that they have left the door open for Meteor Lake to have the space that it needs to keep most, at least, of the laptop market share next year from AMD. Were AMD to launch Strix Point in Q2 next year, like let's say April, and then get Strix Halo out in Q3 or something, I mean, look, that would mean that Strix Point will be throttling Meteor Lake like a month after it comes out with real availability, and then Halo's coming out before Arrow Lake. That would have meant that I think Intel would have probably lost decent client laptop market share next year. But now I think they're going to have that first half of the year to take market share back from AMD, at least a little bit, before we'll see if AMD takes all of that back and more during the back to school and the holiday season. But yeah, I guess that's just a missed opportunity to overperform in laptop next year. I still see them as being more competitive in 2025. And if you were to ask me, would you rather have a major performance king APU release in the first half of the year or right before back to school? I'd say right before back to school every time. And hey, maybe I'll learn that AMD is getting things back to their original cadence and accelerating some of these products. And I certainly hope that they do. But if they do, that will be an update in a future video. And I hope you enjoyed this one, because that's just gonna about do it. If you did enjoy this video, please like it, please share it, talk about this in the comments to help the algorithm, and then make sure that you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and ring that bell button. And again, share as much content as you can. But also consider joining the Patreon. Leo from Kit Guru is the next guest coming out in less than a day from now. And, well, it's going to come out a few hours later than usual, though. I just want to be clear about that. Getting this video out quickly is going to require me to have that come out in the early afternoon instead of in the morning in the US. And, well, also note for that episode with Leo, that was recorded on October 29th. And that doesn't change too much about what we talk about, but just keep in mind we were operating under the assumption that Strix products were coming out about a quarter or two sooner than they look like they will end up coming out when you listen to our opinion there. But again, I don't think it changes that much, and you'll be able to enjoy that tomorrow. Or again, if you join the Patreon, it's out right now. It's been out for hours without any ads, so join that if you have just $4 a month. There's tons of other content there as well, and we could really use the support. But no matter what, if you've made it this far, thank you for watching.